After months of racist attacks by the former president, Elaine Chao, his former Secretary of Transportation, is speaking out. She told Politico in a statement, quote, "When I was young, some people deliberately misspelled or mispronounced my name. Asian Americans have worked hard to change that experience for the next generation. He doesn't seem to understand that, which says a whole lot more about him than it will ever say about Asian Americans." This response comes after high-profile shootings targeting the Asian American community and after the former president repeatedly used a demeaning term in his social media posts to describe Chao. I won't say it, but you can see it there highlighted on the screen. He has also singled out her Asian American heritage as Miss McConnell's, quote, China-loving wife. As the editorial board of the Wall Street Journal noted last year, quote, her real offense was resigning as transportation secretary after Mr. Trump's disgraceful behavior on January 6th. I'm joined now by CNN political commentator Alyssa Farah Griffin, who served as director of communications for the former president and has spoken out against his remarks. Also, senior White House correspondent MJ Lee and senior political commentator Scott Jennings, a longtime advisor to Senator Mitch McConnell, who is, of course, husband to Elaine Chao. MJ, I do want to start with you. You covered Donald Trump for a long time. Trump's spokesperson, Stephen Chung, who is Asian American, told Politico, quote, people should stop feigning outrage and engaging in controversies that exist only in their heads. So what do you make of that as both a reporter and as an Asian American?
Yeah, John, I think I would have thought that especially during a week like this one, when there has been so much pain in the Asian American community, that someone like Mr. Chung might have been thinking a lot about the experience of being Asian American. There is no fake outrage here. I think there is just the reality, and that is that, yeah, Asian Americans and Asian people across this country confront all kinds of racism all the time. And I think what is particularly disturbing to think about this week is thinking about when you see an ex-president mocking and making overtly racist comments about his former cabinet member, what message that might send to the average person about what might be okay to say to the average Asian American and Asian person in this country. And I'm talking about, your neighbor, your colleague, just somebody who looks like me walking down the street. And, Trump has been stoking these racial divisions ever since he was a candidate and going way far back. Past that, he did it when he was president. And I think we have no reason to think that he wouldn't keep doing that if he were to get another 4 years in the White House.
Yeah, and there's no reason to think he doesn't know exactly what he is doing. And MJ, just to hit this one more time, when Elaine Chao speaks about her life experience with growing up, people mispronouncing her name when she was young, does that strike a chord with you?
Yeah, it does. And I think it probably strikes a chord with many, many Asian Americans in this country. And, she said that Asians have been trying to change that experience for future generations and that she believes that Trump clearly doesn't understand that. I think she is clearly right that President Trump has no idea how embedded that experience is in being Asian American. And I just want to make the point that we are not always talking about overt racism or comments that are just so heinous or even bordering on violence. We are talking about sort of the everyday experience, too, of just being made to feel like an other, that you don't belong, that if you look like me, then you must be foreign, and that you have to sort of prove your worth. It is being, asked the question, do you speak English? It is being asked, well, where are you really from? It is being a reporter at a Trump rally in Iowa and being told by somebody, no offense to you, but there are these people coming from Asia all the time and having families here and taking away our jobs. I know you know this, John, that I became an American citizen back in 2016. It was one of the happiest days of my life, but I still, even though I'm now an American citizen, grapple with, I think, that question of belonging as an Asian American that I believe is what Elaine Chao is talking about.
Look, I count that as a win for the United States that we got you in 2017. Alyssa, one of the things you have heard almost verbatim from some Republicans is, oh, Trump just likes to call people names. This is just him doing what he does.
Well, and listen, I'm not going to feign outrage and pretend I'm shocked that President Trump once again used racist comments to attack somebody. This is a pattern for him. He's done it countless times since he was first a declared candidate. I think the two things stand out to me is the timing and the target. Obviously, as MJ mentioned, this tragic mass shooting targeting the Asian American community, and just the fact that violence and harassment against them have been on the rise dating back to COVID and conspiracy theories around that, but also the target. This is a woman, Elaine Chao, who served in the Reagan administration, the Bush administration. She's been a naturalized citizen since she was 19 years old. She's been in public service. She is an American who served in his administration. Her only offense, of course, was that she opposed the insurrection. But the question again for Republicans is, do we want 4 more years of this? We want 4 more years of explaining to our kids why the president or the former president is saying racist, offensive things that we would yell at them for saying on the playground? Like it's just the turning a blind eye and the Rick Scott, he likes to call names. I'm just calling him out there. Like, no, this is blatantly racist. It's the worst timing, and it's such a reminder if we don't need to do this again.
Scott, the do we want 4 more years is a political question, but there's also a moral question here is, do we want 4 more minutes of a public figure saying racist things? And how do you stop that from happening? And, what would you advise Republican officials to say about this? And I ask because Mitch McConnell has been reticent at times to even mention Trump's name. And he's doing that on purpose. I think he doesn't want to necessarily elevate him. But in a case like this, do you think it makes sense to speak out?
Well, I think it made sense for Elaine Chao to speak out because, she's classier than Donald Trump will ever think about being, and she's let this go for some time. But at some point, it becomes not just an issue for her personally, but an issue for the entire Asian American community. I mean, Elaine Chao, her parents, her family, they are 1,000 times the American patriots Donald Trump will ever be. And for him to question their patriotism and question their love of this country and say, they have something to do with communist China. It's outrageous. So I'm glad that she stood up for the entirety of the Asian American community. As for the rest of the Republican Party, I think if you hear Donald Trump say something blatantly racist, the way he's doing against Elaine Chao, and you cannot summon the courage to deal with it if asked, then you need to look inside of yourself and say, what am I doing here? What kind of a party are we building here? And what do we want our country to be? And are we moral enough to lead this country? Candidly, I mean, the Chows are an American success story. Elaine Chao is the first Asian American woman to be in a cabinet, the longest serving cabinet member since World War II. This person is an inspiration to an entire group of people, regardless of your politics. Asian Americans look up to Elaine Chao. And we have this egomaniac, this infant, this racist boob who continues to make these statements about her. It's outrageous, and we all ought to say it every single day, even if Senator McConnell and Elaine Chao choose not to wrestle with a pig in the mud. And that's where the Republican Party ought to stand.